Hello friends, this is Durga from ITversity. As part of this topic, I'll be covering another exercise within the playlist called as data engineering exercises. If you want to get into the details about all the exercises, you can actually click on this link and you should be able to see all the exercises that are published so far as part of the YouTube playlist. Also, I have a hello friends, this is Durga from ITversity. Hello, as part of this topic, I'll be covering. Just give me a moment. Something went wrong here. Okay, I'm sorry for that. I mess up a bit. I thought it is already on mute. Anyway, that's fine. I will remove that part after the streaming is done. So let me recap from the beginning. Okay. So as part of ITversity, recently we have launched a series called as data engineering exercises. As part of this, we want to publish different types of exercises over a period of time, and you can actually see the exercises that are published so far. This exercise, which I'm going to cover as part of the session, is related to the third one, which is nothing but dealing with JSON data. If you want to get the details, you can actually go to the description of this video, which is nothing but this. If you want to go to that playlist, you can click on this and you can go there. If you want to get support while you take care of these solutions for these exercises, you just click on this link. It will actually redirect you to a blog post where it will provide links to actually sign up for our workspace, and then you can be part of a channel called as Data Engineering Services, and you will be able to get the live support for these exercises. That being said, the main topic for this video is also available as part of this link, the first link in the description. If you go there, you can actually see the details about this exercise. When it comes to dealing with the datasets, quite often we have to deal with JSON data. As part of this exercise, you will be tasked to perform basic operations to understand more about working with JSON data. To make sure you are comfortable in processing JSON data using whatever programming language or APIs or tools you want to use, first you need to have some basic knowledge about JSON. By taking care of this exercise, or the exercises under this topic, which I will come up over a period of time, there will be 4 to 5 exercises on this. You will be comfortable with the JSON. You will understand the basics of JSON, and then you will be able to manipulate the JSON the way it should be manipulated using appropriate operations on top of the JSON data. I have created a simple dataset which is in JSON format. You can actually use this dataset. It is called as employees.json, and it is part of our gist. Gist is nothing but a GitHub feature where you can share simple datasets or code snippets to the people in your network. Once you create the gist, you can actually share the link in LinkedIn or any other platform, or even you can enclose as part of the blog post, and you should be able to share with your friends and peers. That being said, you can see that there are 10 different lines in this, and if you look at each of the line, they start with the curly brace and they end with the curly brace. You can see here. To understand more about these lines, you can actually copy one of the line and then go to Google and search for JSON formatter. So all those lines are nothing but JSON objects. And to actually format it a bit better, let me actually go to Google here. I want to use something else. Let me search for JSON formatter. Let me use this jsonformatter.curiousconcept.com. This is better. We can copy paste the one of the lines in the file to this, and then we can say process. It will actually render in a bit readable format. You can see the JSON here. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. I have provided some material with respect to this as part of the blog post where I have defined the exercise. No, actually, I haven't provided here. I think I have provided as part of the YouTube video. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So if you are familiar with JavaScript, typically we use JSON objects quite a lot. Let me set a context for you. For example, if you go to Amazon.com or Flipkart.com, and if you try to place an order, You will create an order, you will add order items, and then you will submit the order, right? When it comes to processing the data which is submitted on the UI, typically we use JSON. It will actually create into a JSON object. It will have multiple levels of JSON objects within one, and then that will be passed onto the server side layer or application layer or web layer, where the backend will process that JSON and it will actually map to database tables in the database, and then data will be loaded into that. Let me open a presentation here and let me set the context in a bit better way. I'm opening a PowerPoint here, and I want to walk you through the web application architecture. Let me get onto the slide mode here. Okay, if you think about the web application, typically, especially the e-commerce applications, right? You will use your browser as the client, and then you will have web or app server which will be running behind the firewall of a company, and then you will also have a database. So the web or app server and database will be behind the firewall of the company. Depending upon the programming language and framework used, the web or app server will be chosen. If it is a Spring Boot application or any Java-based application, typically the web or app server will be like JBoss, Tomcat, or there are advanced servers also like WebLogic, etc. If it is JavaScript based full stack application, then the web or app server could be Node.js. If it is Python based application, it can be Django or Flask based servers. And then database can be a typical RDBMS. Most of the e-commerce platforms are developed against the typical RDBMS. When it comes to the tables in database, they will be normalized, and tables will be created to address the issue of redundancy and all those things. For example, if you want to store the data of an order which contain order items in the database, there can be two tables, orders and order items. There will be few other tables also where we'll have references to customers, products, etc. But the core transaction tables can be orders and order items. So there will be two tables, and we have to load data into those tables. However, when it comes to the browser where you try to place the order, if you go to Amazon or Flipkart, you will choose the multiple items. You will add to the cart, and then you will check out. Right? When you add to the cart, it will not be represented. When I say it, I'm talking about data. Data will not be represented the same way as the tables in the database. Data will be represented in a different way. And then we have to pass the data into web or app server. There will be some business logic that needs to be executed on the data which is passed from client to the web or app server. For example, if it is Amazon, and if you are trying to purchase products, it has to check whether you are authorized to purchase certain products or not. Or if you are trying to purchase with a credit card, it has to talk to your credit card provider, and it has to get the money from the credit card company, and then only it will let you to complete the order. So there is some business logic that needs to be executed, and it will be taken care as part of the web or app server. Once the order is processed, the actual data will be persisted in the database, and the way data will be persisted in the database will be different from the way it is passed from the client. So one of the standard way to pass the data from the client to the web or app server in a typical web application is by using JSON. Then, as part of the web or app server layer, you have to process that JSON data as per the database tables, and then you have to save it in the database. For that, we use something called as ORM, Object Relational Models. If it is Java-based application, we use Hibernate. If it is Python-based applications, we use SQL Alchemy or Django, ORM, etc. There are multiple frameworks which will actually let us define the relationship between the objects which are coming from the front end and the database tables in the back end. However, here I'm talking about the objects which are passed from the front end. They will be typically passed in the form of JSON itself. That being said, I hope you got some of the concepts with respect to the relevance of the usage of JSON. Now, if you actually look at the characteristics of the JSON, again, I'm taking you to the page where I have the formatted JSON data, you can see that all the column names or all the attribute names are unique. You have ID, first name, last name, email, gender, phone numbers, addresses. All of them are unique. It is also called as keys. These are also called as keys or attributes, and they are always unique. And that's what I'm saying here. Keys are unique. Values can be simple values or another JSON object or an array. You can see here. So when it comes to values for fields like ID, first name, last name, email, etc., they are nothing but simple numeric values or strings. However, if you look at phone numbers where one can have multiple phone numbers or more than one phone numbers, I want to actually pass the phone numbers in the form of array. So this is not a simple value, it is array. When it comes to addresses, let me expand this. When it comes to addresses, again, addresses, there can be multiple addresses for an employee, and I want to maintain it as a collection. And you can see that there is only one address for this record. That's why there is only one entry. But if I pick another object from here, let me pick this. Let me see. Yeah, it has a lot more data. Let me copy this, and then let me go here. Let me click on this link, paste it here, and then process. And if you see here, there are multiple addresses. And all the addresses again have street number, name, city, state, postal code, etc., which are nothing but the attributes for these different fields within address. And all of them are again unique. So this is nothing but array of set of JSON objects. So this is one JSON object. This is another JSON object, like that. So the value can be a simple value. Examples are nothing but ID, first name, last name, etc. The values are simple numeric values or strings, or the value can be an array, or the value can be another JSON object. Sometimes we will just have another JSON object without any array, or it can be array of JSON objects also. And the example is addresses. If you have only one address, probably as address will contain all the attributes, we can represent as a JSON object rather than array of JSON objects. So the JSON objects can be nested like this. This is called as a nested structure, and you can have as many levels of JSON objects as you want in case of a complex scenarios. That being said, if you try to relate with the e-commerce platform, when it comes to the data with respect to an order, when we actually pass the information from the front end of a e-commerce platform, there will be order. So there will be one JSON object when we try to submit an order. It will contain an ID. And what are the other attributes with respect to order? It can be order date, the customer ID who is trying to place the order, and other details, whatever is relevant to the order. And then there can be multiple items within an order. And when it comes to order items, we can actually represent them as an array of items, right? And when it comes to order item, again, order item will have products associated with it. So within each and every item, we can have another nested JSON to actually pass product level details also to the backend. And then as part of the backend processing, the data which is in the form of a complex JSON can be mapped to the tables by using ORM, and we should be able to persist in the database. Okay. Now that being said, this is how the JSON data will look like. You just take the data, spend some time in understanding the JSON structure, and then you proceed with the rest of the exercise. Okay. When it comes to processing data in JSON, it happens in almost all kinds of applications, as part of the web application, mobile application, in data engineering applications. Sometimes we might have to interoperate between two layers, and one of the standard way of interoperating is nothing but JSON. And also there are some binary formats which are similar to JSON. It is called as Avro. If you're comfortable with JSON, you will be comfortable with Avro also. Otherwise, you will not be comfortable with Avro. And also MongoDB is the database which actually stores the data in JSON format itself. At the abstraction layer level, where we interact with MongoDB, typically the data is represented as JSON. However, when it comes to actual storage, it might store it in binary format, or it stores in binary format, and we call it as BSON. But when we interact with the objects, we typically interact in the form of JSON only. And when it comes to MongoDB, even the querying syntax will be like JSON only. Unless and until you are comfortable with the JSON, you will not be able to write queries effectively for MongoDB. These days, they have introduced even regular SQL also to query data from the MongoDB, but still JSON-based approach is frequently used when it comes to extracting the data from MongoDB, or even loading the data into MongoDB, and whatever operations you want to perform on top of databases like MongoDB. MongoDB is not the only database which can be interacted with JSON style syntax. There are other important databases also, like DynamoDB, I think Couchbase. There's quite a few databases which can be interacted using JSON style syntax. So once you are comfortable with JSON, you should be able to pick those skills very effectively. That being said, when it comes to processing JSON data as part of backend processing before storing into the database, there are several JSON related libraries depending upon the programming language you want to use. In case of Python, there's a library called as JSON itself. Using the JSON library, you should be able to process the data. To solve the exercises as part of this topic, you have to either use the JSON library from Python, or even Pandas have libraries to interact with JSON. So you just have to figure out those libraries and you can start coming up with solutions. I'm not going to cover how to use them and all as part of this session. I just want to make sure that you understand a bit of fundamentals related to JSON, and then you should be able to try yourself to come up with solutions for these exercises. Now, when it comes to the first exercise, here are the tasks you need to perform. You have to go to the gist, copy the data. You can save it into a file called as employees.json. Then first go to the data and identify the following: type of each employee, type of phone number, type of addresses, etc. So when I say type, it can be JSON, it can be array, it can be array of JSON objects, etc. You just have to identify the fundamental aspects of that JSON structure. In case you are not clear, you can respond to this as part of our data engineering exercise Slack channel. If you want to go to the Slack channel, I will actually provide the link as part of this topic also. However, you can actually go to the description. You see this second link. You can actually click on this, and you can be part of our Slack channel to get your doubts clarified. Okay, and then let me walk you through the rest of the other stuff also. So for now, you just have to read JSON data into a list of dicts. So dict is nothing but a Python data structure. If you are not sure about what is a dict, you can actually go through our basics of programming using Python, where I have covered details with respect to dicts quite a lot. You can actually pick up some skills related to dict. To convert the JSON data into dict, either you can use JSON library or Pandas. However, if you want to use JSON library, you also need to use the standard Python file IO. So you just have to Google a bit effectively, identify appropriate piece of code, and start loading the data from a file into a list of dicts. So in this case, you have to store the data in JSON format into list of dicts. That list should contain 10 dicts. And if you try to relate JSON with a data structure in a programming language, JSON is similar to the dict in Python or hash map in Java. So in this case, as we are using Python, we can actually load the JSON data or JSON objects or list of JSONs into a dict, and we should be able to process further. And as part of this exercise, you just have to understand how to read this JSON dataset into list of dicts, and then you just have to get number of elements in the dict. I'm not asking anything else, just get the number of elements in the dict. That is more than enough. And then I will come up with the additional exercise on the simple dataset, so that you actually perform different types of operations to get clarity about how to deal with JSON data over a period of time. That being said, coming back to the data engineering exercises, there's a link here. You can click on this, and you should be able to see all the exercises, and whatever videos that are reflected in the playlist are available as part of these topics also. Okay, so you should be able to watch here and try to understand some of the key concepts related to these exercises, and also you can get some clarity with respect to the details of these exercises, and then you can come up with the solution. So every week we are planning to publish 3 exercises. One exercise will be use case driven, and then the other 2 exercises will be simple to moderate complex exercises, which can be standalone exercises. Okay, when it comes to use case, there will be 10 plus exercises over a period of time, where you can spend 1 to 2 hours every week and try to come up with a solution for the problem statement that will be defined over a period of time in the form of exercises. When I talk about exercises related to use case, so stay tuned, and you should be able to learn quite a bit of Python programming skills or data engineering skills over a period of time by following these exercises and by coming up with solutions for these exercises. There are certain rules which you need to follow. Let me see if I have defined those rules as part of this exercise. Let me go here. So this is the one which I'm talking about. There are no hard and fast rules for this. With respect to use case driven exercises, there are certain rules which you need to follow. For this, only thing you need to keep in mind is, if you want to get your solutions reviewed by us, you can join our Slack workspace. Our Slack workspace is nothing but IT University data engineers. Once you join the Slack workspace by actually clicking on this link, the second link, and then by clicking on this workspace link, you can actually see this. Let me go back to the Slack now. You will be part of this workspace. So Slack workspace is nothing but a group of channels. You can see several channels in this. All the discussions that are related to data engineering exercises is part of this channel. You can join this channel, and then you can see there are topics associated with these exercises. You just respond to the thread, and I will be reviewing some of these exercises. I might not be able to review all the exercises of everyone. I will try to review by taking a sample. I will try to identify the pattern, and then if I have to solve that problem via video, I will try to address that problem via video. Otherwise, I will just respond as part of the Slack itself. So this is how you'll be getting the support for these exercises. So subscribe to our channel or join our Slack workspace, and stay tuned. You will be learning quite a lot with respect to data engineering, and the main topics which we'll be covering are nothing but SQL, Python, shell scripting, Spark, NoSQL, and many other technologies for a period of time. That being said, let me see if there are any questions from the audience. If not, I'll be wrapping up. Let me minimize this PowerPoint which is in my way. Then I should be able to go to that live streaming page to see if there are any questions. There seem to be no questions. Thank you very much for joining the session, and we'll catch up over the weekend for Python live sessions. If you are interested, you can subscribe to our channel and click on the notification icon, and you will be getting the notifications for our live sessions. Thank you. Bye.